Well, I'm going to go on and say welcome. Thank you all for your patience and waiting for us to connect. We were trying to wait on a quorum, and even though we're not quite there, we're still going to go on and honor everyone's time by continuing to proceed through the agenda. If you have not seen an agenda, first of all, let me say my name is Gwen Corley-Creighton. I have the honor of serving as the chair of the Citizens Advisory Panel of the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust Richmond Land Bank. It's a whole lot, to say. But if you don't know, the Citizens Advisory Panel is really that link between the land bank and the community. So it's our pleasure to really take the position of repurposing properties to rejuvenate communities. And what we typically do at the beginning of all of our meetings is we do a Richmond Land Bank 101 session, because we don't assume that everyone knows what the land bank, what the land trust, and what the Citizens Advisory Panel is. So we'll do that first, and then we will take a moment to formally just review and accept or make revisions to the minutes from our last meeting in February. We do have some panel changes that we want to announce, so new members to introduce, and we also have some staff changes that we'll share, and that will be followed by a community land trust requirement discussion. And when we do discussions, whether it's of property or particular procedures, after those are shared, we do have some time that we allow for public comments. So those of you who are members that are members of the community will have a chance to weigh in. And then we will move to talking about the surplus properties that are on the list, that are on the website. And once staff has shared what those are, what some recommendations are, we will open that up to public comment too. So that's basically the agenda for today. And I think on that note, I'm just going to go on mute and Flora, ask you to do our overview of what is the Richmond Land Bank.
Yeah, happy to see everyone here. My name is Flora Valdez de Pena. I am the sort of manager for the land bank, community engagement portion and the CAP. And I'm going to be telling you a little about. Sorry, I dropped out there for a second because it got too intense for my computer. So let me try and share my. There we go. Can y'all see that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the Richmond Land Bank was created to deal with the large amount of vacant and tax delinquent properties in the city. Between 2010 and 2017, just 1 in 3 tax delinquent properties auctioned off by the city was developed or rehabilitated. And the rest remained unimproved or vacant. And so the Richmond Land Bank was created to solve that problem and actually bring these vacant properties back into, productive community uses. So a land bank is an entity that can receive properties that are vacant and underused. Frequently, land banks have the power to clear title on them, which means kind of resolve any legal issues that might be there, from previous liens or anything like that. And then our land bank has the power to conduct a transparent and public process to find people to take these vacant properties and turn them into something useful. And we do that through the use of development agreements. So if someone signs a development agreement on one of our properties, that means they have to build what they said they were going to build. And if they don't build it, they have to give it back. So that basically ensures that, things actually happen. The priorities of the land bank right now, the top priority is affordable housing. The land bank is a program of the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust, which is an affordable homeownership program. And that's part of the reason why we were selected as the land bank is because the city wanted to prioritize affordable housing. So that is really our main function. We also can consider giving land for commercial uses, for open space, for urban agriculture, or other uses, including commercial uses, depending on the context and the needs and the desires of the community. There are currently over 250 land banks in the U.S. The Richmond Land Bank was the first in Virginia after they were legalized in 2016. So the way that this works generally is the city will give us vacant properties. The staff will look at these properties and say, okay, what can we do with them? What are some options here? What's the best way forward for these? We'll try to engage neighbors and talk to people, and then we'll bring them to the Citizens Advisory Panel and, in a public meeting such as this, and say, okay, what should we do with these? The Citizens Advisory Panel will then give a recommendation as to their use, and the staff will go about collecting applications that align with that use from pre-qualified applicants. After we've collected a bunch of applications for these properties, we'll bring the applications back to the CAP, and the CAP will look at all of them in a public meeting and say, okay, based on what the community is telling us, and based on the needs, and based on the context, we think this application is the best one. And then they give that recommendation to the board of the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust. The board reviews it, goes through their own vote on it, and then those properties are transferred at a significantly below market rate to the chosen developer, whether that's a nonprofit or an individual or a local business or what have you. And then they sign a development agreement saying that they have to build what they said they were going to build. And that's how a property goes from vacant to restored to useful. So like I said, top priority is affordable housing. I need to edit this slide deck a little bit. The Citizens Advisory Panel is jointly appointed by the City of Richmond and the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust Board of Directors. 5 members are appointed by the city, 4 are appointed by the board. And it's designed to be a public, transparent advisory board to kind of guide the decisions of the land bank so that we can make the best decisions for the community. This is a recent map of our properties. The 15 that we're going to be talking about tonight are the yellow dots you'll see. There are a couple that we're still holding on to and figuring out what to do with. There are 10 that we've transferred recently to the Jackson Project to help with their Skip with Roper Homecoming initiative. There are a bunch in the East End that we've transferred to be converted into housing, affordable housing. And there's 1 or 2 here or there that we have transferred for other uses, one of which is the Bank of America building in 6 Points in North Highland Park that is going to the Hand Up Community Resource Center, who's going to build a community pharmacy there, which is something we're really excited about. And that is the end of my presentation. Yeah, so welcome. Like I said, I'm Flora. I kind of am the staff liaison for the CAP. I have Eric Mai with me. Eric is the acquisition manager for MWCLT, who is going to be talking about our properties and things. I have a couple other staff members here with me. Elizabeth Munyon is our home purchasing coordinator for the CLT. Lark Washington is our fundraising director, and Mitchell Denise is our construction director, and Erica Sims is here, our CEO. So hi, everybody, welcome.
Great. Thank you, Flora, so much. And Flora is always that go-to person. If you've got any questions, you know, outside of the meeting or, you know, need additional information, if she doesn't know it, she will direct you to the appropriate resource. So thank you so much for that overview and that presentation. Members of the CAP, when you received your packet, you received a copy of the minutes from our February meeting. Since we are not a formal legal entity, we quasi follow Robert's Rules of Order. So we don't make motions, we just make decisions and recommendations. So those of you who have received those minutes, if you would just share if there's any changes or corrections that need to be made to those minutes, let us know. And if not, we will approve those minutes as they've been submitted. And I know, I don't know if there's anybody here. Sheba, you were at that meeting. I think you and I are probably the only ones that are on this call now, other than staff who was at that meeting. So staff or Sheba, did you have any changes or corrections? Okay, great. Then we will approve those minutes as submitted. The third item on our agenda tonight is CAP changes, Citizens Advisory Panel. And I think all of you know that we have staggered terms for the members of the CAP, and I think the terms are, and Flora, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're 3-year terms, and you can serve up to 2 3-year terms. But we've had a few people to leave. You know, this year, Helen Hardiman, who was our vice chair, has left, as well as Melissa Guerrera moved back to New York, and so she is no longer with us. Micah Morris, I don't know if they've had the new addition to their family, but because of those changes, you know, has left. And I think as a result of that, there are 2 new members that we want to welcome to the CAP tonight. And one of those, I'll do ladies first. One of those is Lynn McAteer, and she's waving her hands now. And Lynn, it's so good to have you on board. Many of you may have interacted with her when she was a full-time employee of the Better Housing Coalition. And Lynn, I don't know, is there anything at all you want to share with folks as far as why you're here or what you're excited about in being a part of the land bank and the CAP?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have known about the land bank for a number of years. And even over almost 10 years ago, when I was Better Housing Coalition started some initial investigation about what it would be like to put one together. We went down to Durham and I saw just the advantages of it. And so, you know, I've been aware of it. I had some general knowledge of how it worked, and really, you know, I'm so committed to affordable housing and making sure that people of modest means can afford to buy a house, because that's the primary way that we all build wealth. So, you know, that's a major attraction for me. And also as a city resident, it just pains me when we have so much vacant land that can be used and can be made productive. So it kind of hits 2 goals of mine to make sure that there's it's a tool in terms of making housing affordable. And I think it's really good for the city. So they're my 2 main interest points, and I'm just happy to serve. And, you know, I'm looking around on the screen and a number of the names are familiar. So it just feels good to be among people that I know at one level or another.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lynn, and welcome. You know, it's
Thank
good to be with you again. You know,
Yeah.
it's been a while, most definitely.
Yeah.
And the second new member that we have on board tonight is James Lambert. And I remember his face. I didn't know much about him, but you know, the staff has done a phenomenal job over the last, well, 3 years that we've been in existence of really enhancing the level of community engagement, both in person and especially virtually. And, you know, seeing 20 to 30 citizens at some of our meetings is not out of the ordinary. And James was one of those familiar faces that showed up over the last year and a half, I guess, to most of our meetings. And having had a chance just to have a little bit of conversation, you know, I'm fascinated by someone who has a double master's and is working on their PhD, has a commitment to building generational wealth. And I think I'm going to stop at that point because we do have limited time for our meeting tonight, Mr. Lambert. But if you too would share kind of the motivation and what excites you about being a part of the land bank and the CAP.
Well, I was always curious to know what the Magwell Community Land Trust did and what the Richmond Land Bank did. So I attended a few meetings and I was very intrigued, and I love the mission and I love what we do. So I'm just grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be in a position to serve.
Wonderful, thank you. You know, looking forward to what both of you bring, you know, to the land bank and to the Citizens Advisory Panel. So on that note, there is one other change that I do want to recognize as far as the CAP is concerned. It's kind of bittersweet for me personally because this is the second meeting of the year for me. And it is, after 3 years, this is also my last meeting in the role of chair. It has truly been an honor and a privilege to serve in this capacity. And, you know, I will be leaving after today. But, you know, the exciting thing is that we already have a new chair in place. And you see her on the screen, and she is Sharon Ebert. And thank you, Sharon, for taking the time to be present at our meeting tonight. And if you would just give us just like Lynn and James had shared, would you share with us what excites you and what really kind of has you pumped up about being a part of this process?
Certainly. Thank you, Gwen, and nice to meet everybody here as part of the advisory panel. I have most of my background has been in affordable housing. And so this just kind of continues that passion and desire we have, you know, throughout the United States and actually the world, just an unmet need for affordable housing. It never goes away, regardless if we're in an up market or a down market. There's just never enough affordable housing. So I am really hoping that I can, you know, bring my passion here to help expedite and move things along so that we can see more affordable housing being developed. And I agree, you know, with Lynn that home ownership is a pathway for building, you know, multi-generational wealth. And so this mission, you know, just fits nicely, you know, where my passions lie.
Wonderful, thank you, and welcome. You know, look forward to seeing you in your leadership, you know, throughout this process. I think on that note, I'm probably going to move to the back because we've got some staff changes that need to be announced, some folks introduced, and then we're going to proceed through the rest of the agenda. And it's at this point that typically staff kind of takes over and facilitates the rest of that. So Flora, I don't know if you're talking about staff changes or who.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. I first of all just wanted to say, Gwen, on behalf of the entire staff and all of our CAP members, I wanted to thank you for your service as the chair of this panel. It's been an absolute pleasure. You have been a tremendous leader and facilitator and everything. We would not be where we are without you. So thank you so much for your service, Gwen. Now, I just wanted to this is mostly for CAP members, but just a point of information. We went through some staff changes over the past few months. Julia McNelly, who was previously our kind of CAP liaison, left to go pursue a master's in landscape architecture, which is cool. And so Eric and I sort of split her responsibilities. I am now the CAP liaison. Eric has taken over the acquisition and kind of land management duties. Eric has been with HD Advisors since early 2020, and so it's really he's a really great coworker, a really great colleague. So I'm super excited to be working with him. We also have Mitchell Denise as our new construction manager, who is mostly managing things on the MWCLT side, going over the building of houses, which is really great. Who else we have? Oh, yes. Lark Washington recently joined us as a fundraising director for MWCLT. We recently gained Nikki Diadamo Damery also unfortunately left us. So Elizabeth Munyon, who was previously our AmeriCorps Vista, has stepped into her role as the sort of homeowner engagement coordinator. And as well, we've also hired April Ward as a homeowner engagement coordinator. So she and Elizabeth work together on community engagement efforts a lot. And we also have a new AmeriCorps Vista who couldn't be here tonight. Her name is Leah Coltrane. So just, yeah, point of information. Erica is also still here. So hi, Erica. And with that, I guess I will kick it over to Eric, who's going to talk a little bit about the proposed CLT homeownership requirement for land bank properties. And then we're going to have a little bit of time for public comment about that policy afterward.
Sure, thank you. CAP members, you should have received a memo in your packet that kind of outlines this request. And I'll just kind of read it for the other members, the other attendees. I'll just read briefly. The following request is precipitated by the ongoing affordability crisis impacting Richmond City residents. As of June 2022, the median year-to-date sales price for a single-family home in the city was $350,000. And so the continuing increases in home prices, coupled with interest rates bouncing back after early pandemic lows, are really only making it harder for low and moderate income households to reach home ownership. The starter home market is waning, if not non-existent, as below $200,000 homes are quick to be sold or flipped for greater profit. So the need for permanent affordability is more important than ever to stem the negative impacts of gentrification and ensure that homeownership opportunities continue to exist for those with modest incomes. So we as staff, as well as the board of Maggie Walker Community Land Trust, are making a request to make it a requirement for all applicants developing home ownership opportunities on land bank properties to place their homes into the community land trust. This requirement will help ensure that these former city surplus properties see permanent benefit to future Richmond homeowners. And so I'd like to submit this item up for discussion.
So Eric, if you don't mind, can you briefly explain kind of what those restrictions entail if somebody has the property and they put it into the land trust? What's the impact on the homeowner going forward?
Yeah, so that will restrict the resale of the property to another income qualified buyer. And then that person would receive, that's a 3% annual increase in appreciation of their home price. And so, the benefit to that is that even in kind of a down market, they see guaranteed sales proceeds. Capped at 3% annual increase. Yes, thank you, Flora.
And,
Mhm.
and the income of the subsequent buyer, what's the max on that?
The max is 80% AMI.
Okay, wow. Okay,
It's 115%.
Oh, okay.
115. Okay, I was thinking 80 was kind of low, but okay, 115
Thank you.
makes more sense. And so I'm just,
The 115, that's for the max or the minimum?
The
That's
max.
the max. Some of the homes are restricted to the initial purchaser of the home is restricted to 80% of median income. And some of our homes, based on the funding they receive, the second purchaser and subsequent purchasers also have to make no more than 80% of median income. But most of the homes, when the homeowner goes to sell them, they are able to sell them to households earning up to 115% of median income. So far, all of our homes have resold to households well under 80% of income, median income, closer to 60% of median income.
Thanks, Erica.
And the comment is, if I understand this correctly too, in the past, when we have, through that application process, sold or conveyed that property to either other CDCs or developers, there was not a requirement that they put it into the land trust.
Correct.
And so this is making sure that going forward, any property that's conveyed through that application process, once it's renovated or built, that property will go back into the land trust.
right. Okay.
What qualifies something to go into the land trust? Are those just the vacant properties?
Well, these will go through the land bank process. So through, so for instance, the 15 surplus properties that we'll talk about for the rest of this meeting, there's a property purchase application. And so those properties will be open for other qualified applicants to apply for. There is a requirement to develop affordable housing, whether that's to build new construction or rehab an existing building. And so for those projects who are developing home ownership opportunities, so no rental, the requirement would that those home ownership opportunities, they would enter those homes into the community land trust.
This is an opportunity also for those of you who are not members of the CAP. In addition, that was was it Dreama? Is that your name? Who had asked that question? If there are any other questions from the community at large, those can be entertained now by staff.
My name is Dream.
Sorry. Sorry. Thank you for that correction.
Thank you. No, you guys are going over the qualifications, correct?
Qualifications for what?
Getting approved for the home.
Oh,
Like if I wanted to be one of the
No, sorry,
homeowners.
we're not going to be talking about that tonight. That is about the CLT program. For more information about that, check out maggiewalkerclt.org. But this is purely about land bank business tonight.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, Dreama, and I would encourage, if you haven't attended any of those home buyer seminars, they're excellent. They really are very well done. And that gives you all the information to understand what is the land trust, how properties are, made available through the land trust, the requirements, just all of those details are answered there. And they're scheduled pretty regularly. So if you haven't attended one, do make a point of attending it. And I would encourage CAP members, if your schedule accommodates that, sit in on one of those sessions. They're extremely informative and really very well attended. And you'll see some of the, not only the information, but some of the concerns and questions that come up from the community related to the properties. If there are no other questions or comments or discussion, James, you did have one.
Yes, I just have one question. Roughly what percentage of properties in the past were transferred out of the land trust?
I guess I'm having trouble understanding your question. What?
I think Flora can give an accurate answer for that. In the past, all of the properties except for 2 or 3 have become affordable housing out of the land bank. And those 2 or 3, it was because they couldn't really become housing for various reasons. And almost all of those became homeownership. And that was generally because of the size of the property. You know, it was just like a single family lot. And so nonprofits mostly applied for them, and the single family homes they were imagining they weren't interested in doing them as affordable rental. They just couldn't make it work financially. Urban Hope is an exception to that. They did a few affordable rental properties in Church Hill through the land bank. So of those other properties that became affordable homeownership properties, most of them, and Flora has just said, 7 went into the community land trust. So that meant that we have always had it as an option in the application to put your property into the land trust if you're doing affordable homeownership. And so many applicants elected to do that in the past.
And Maggie Walker does apply for these properties as well, and will compete with these other applicants for these properties.
Great. Great questions and conversation. Are there any others before we?
Mary Kay.
Mary Kay.
Hi, thank you.
Hey, Mary.
Hi. So am I understanding this correctly, that a requirement to procure properties from the land bank now, they will have to ultimately stay in the land bank? Am I understanding that correctly? Because as you know, our partner family homes, we have not been doing that. There's certainly affordable housing, and we have the first right of refusal on those as they turn over to go back to the land bank, but not from the beginning. So am I understanding that correctly?
That's
correct. This is a change, in other words, this is a change, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's going to impact Habitat's participation, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and it's just a change related to affordable homeownership, which is
Right.
obvious.
That's our gig, right?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Other questions or comments?
I'm sorry, I have a quick question. So it's the land goes into the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust. That's the change. It goes from the land bank to the developer, and that land, not the improvement, goes into the Community Land Trust.
Correct.
Is that right, Laura, Erica?
Yes.
Okay. So
you just muted yourself again.
Own the homes, but they won't own land.
Right. Yeah. It goes to the land trust, just the land, not the improvements.
So what happens to the establishments that are on, like, if I build a house on the land, what happens to the house?
The house is owned by the homeowner. It's right. like any other house. This is about the CLT program. Again, if you're interested in the CLT program, please check out maggiewalkerclt.org for more information about that.
So what's the difference? Okay, so I guess my understanding is what you're talking about versus what this is.
Do you mean what the current policy is, or do you mean
The objective of this meeting?
this meeting is about the Richmond Land Bank, which is a method that a program of MWCLT that transfers that takes vacant properties from the city of Richmond and turns them into other things like housing or parks or other things like that. So this is a land use program. This is not a homeownership program. We're not talking about the homeownership program right now, except for the merits of it as a tool to create affordable housing, which is a goal of the land bank.
And if I could also add, Dream, what's happening is we're going to get to the properties, which really is kind of the heart of why we usually meet. This particular requirement is something that we're making a change as far as the application for which either any organization, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit, if they want to purchase land, we're just putting this additional requirement in for those that apply. That's what this is related to. It's not related to people that want to buy a home. So again, as Flora,
to work, they should I just go to the bus?
I'm sorry.
I think that was an accidental unmute. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Flora has emphasized, because I know it can be really confusing. The whole piece about home ownership and who owns the house and the land and all of that is what's covered in those home buying seminars. So
Gotcha.
To make sure you sign up for the next ones that are scheduled. They're really extremely informative. And I think all of your questions are going to be answered there. They really are. So thank you for your patience and kind of working with us through that. And, on that note, you're welcome. If there are not other questions related to this requirement, my question is, is the members of the CAP that are present, because we don't have a quorum, so we'll have to also have the other members weigh in. Are you in agreement with this requirement for those organizations that apply to receive the properties from the land bank?
Yeah.
Okay. And we do consensus because we're really trying to get to the point where all of us can live with and support the decision that's being made. And so I saw a head bob with Lynn. Sheba, I can't see you, James, because we're about the only.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you. Didn't hear you. And James, are you in agreement too?
Yes, yeah. I'm in agreement. My only fear is that it might turn away some of our partners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a really valid concern to bring up. I think Mary Kay, you voiced that, pretty loudly.
I'd be interested in kind of listening to the understanding of what happens once the home is sold. I think if the goal is affordability, and when we say affordability, we're talking about true affordability, not just based on what the AMI is. I'm talking about really taking an intentional process of making sure that people who can't otherwise afford to live in these communities and that are being pushed out daily have the opportunity to stay or, go there. And I think the affordability issue that I've been seeing a lot of is people will acquire the properties and commit to the affordability asset for a limited amount of time. And once it's sold again, it kind of goes away under the guise that this is still affordable, but who is it affordable for? Because if we're talking about $350,000, that's not necessarily affordable for people who are trying to buy now. And because rental properties are not necessarily readily available anymore, we're removing more and more property from the affordability context for people who truly need to have a safe and affordable place for their families to live. So I'd be interested in understanding a little bit more what our partners will anticipate, going through if this should change, because we do value our partners, and we know that this affordability crisis is weighing a lot on you all as well. But the goal is about people, and people in the community, and people who need to live and be able to afford these things for a long time, where we're seeing just an uptick in prices, and it's not coming down. It's not getting better. If we're really talking about generational wealth, then we have to think about people who may never get to $15 an hour, because if we're dependent on legislation and politics to get people there, we just might not get there. So I value our partners, and I want to know like how it impacts you all, but we still have to be really intentional about centering the people in the communities that we're serving.
Yeah. Valid point, very valid point. Eric, Flora, has there been conversation with partners?
Not yet.
About this requirement? And what, what are they saying? We heard Mary Kay. What are you hearing from our partners?
Yeah, we haven't discussed it with any other partners yet. I believe those other partners would potentially be Project Homes and Southside. But we can have those conversations if that would provide additional context and information for the CAP.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing that, again, because we do value partnerships, as Shiva said, it might be good just to hear, their sentiments and how that's going to impact them and going forward as far as the properties that are going to be made available through the land bank. So if we could do that, and perhaps the subsequent communication could be via email, so that the CAP then could make a recommendation after receiving that information.
Sure. Yeah, I can. We can have those conversations with our partners. Project Homes, Southside, like Eric mentioned, and Habitat and others, and we'll bring that all back to y'all via email and chat about it. Then.
Great.
So yeah, this can be our meeting we have about it.
Great.
In that case, should we go ahead and move on to the properties?
Yep. We're going to the properties now.
Thank you. I'm gonna share my screen. I think that might be a little easier to go over these. Can everyone see this properly? No. Let's try this again.
We did see it for a minute and then it went away.
Okay. How about now?
It's coming in.
Okay, great. So I'll go by this kind of quickly, property by property, and then maybe after going over each property, we can then have discussion if needed. So the first property is 5913 Ferguson. This is currently a vacant property located in the West End off Patterson. We've been working with an engineer as well as our legal team to mainly clear up title on these 15 properties. There's been several title issues with each of these properties. And then we're also doing some due diligence just to ensure that we have a clear understanding of what's possible on each of these lots. This property has all the adequate utilities as well. It's currently vacant. It's maintained, and this is ready for a single family detached home. And we are recommending that it's submitted to the property purchase application. Then we'll switch over to 429 Pollock Street. I'll just zoom out so you can better understand where it is in relation to everything. So in the Providence Park neighborhood, we have other properties here as well. And so this currently is a vacant lot here. And this is adequate to support a single-family detached home. And we are also recommending that this is submitted to the property purchase application. Directly across the street is 410 Pollock, which is also a vacant lot currently. It is quite large and it goes back to this fence line. There is the possibility to do 2 single-family detached homes here. We've spoken with the city planning department as well. There may be some additional requirements to construct another home back here in the rear, but it is possible. Moving down the street, there is 207 East Ladies Mile, which is at the end of this cul-de-sac. The address is actually fronting East Ladies Mile, but the engineer suggests that we reposition the home to face the cul-de-sac. Once again, this property is most suitable for a single-family detached home. This is ready for construction. It's vacant. There are no environmental issues. It would only need a new address. This 5th property, 431 Hazelhurst. It is adjacent to 410 Pollock. This is ready for a 1 single-family detached home. Again, with some of the properties here located on Hazelhurst and Pollock, there could be some potential issues with a resource management area, as well as a potential perennial stream that may need to be addressed. But this lot can support a single-family detached home. So we are also recommending this for to be submitted to the property purchase application. 3201 Hazelhurst, which is right over here. This property is actually a narrow parcel that actually in front of this neighbor's yard. And we have gotten approval from the city to potentially subdivide this property and sell it to the neighbor because it is unsuitable for single-family home development. We're switching over to the south side. This is off of Forest Hill Avenue. There are 3 parcels here that front Forest Hill Avenue. We have spoken with the City of Richmond's planning department. They are saying that it's possible to do up to 8 units of townhomes or single-family detached home. This would probably not be adequate enough for multifamily given the location, but applicant is, if they are willing to do the due diligence, they're willing to put up an application for that. This is ready for construction. This was recently a staging site for the improvements along Forest Hill Avenue. Still on the south side of Richmond, near the corner of Quarden and Sims, there's 2 parcels right here, 1905, 1903. We're suggesting that the applicant, like the previous addresses on Forest Hill, apply for all properties to do 1 single development. And again, here, the city is suggesting that there's a possibility for 8 to 10 units of townhomes. There are good precedent across the street where Ryan Homes has done similar townhomes. This lot is narrow, but it is suitable for residential construction. You will need to submit a special use permit to get this rezoned or get it rezoned. And then there's some potential site grading issues towards the north. This could be potentially suitable for multifamily, and we welcome applications for either single family attached or multifamily. 3100 Alvis is located closer to the north side near Brooklyn Park. This parcel is a very large parcel that stretches from, let's see, maybe it's better to, that's fine. This is a very large parcel that stretches down through this creek called Cannon's Branch, which is making it slightly cost prohibitive, but the city is willing to work with us to subdivide this property so that the smaller, the northern section of the parcel could be developed for a single family detached home. 1501 Call Street is located kind of near the Barton Heights area. What is this? Yes, Highland Park, Southern Barton Heights. It is this small parcel right here. We've spoken with our construction manager, Mitchell Denise, who's taken a look at this property. Although it's small, there is the potential to do a similarly sized homes as the other sized homes here. The parcel is this entire length as well. And a neighbor has constructed this driveway across the parcel. So the applicant will have to work with that property owner to address those issues. But there is potential to develop a single family detached home here as well. 3602 Delaware Avenue. This is a property wherein here, this is a vacant lot here. The neighbor next door has, in fact, constructed a fence that blocks off this lot. We are working with our legal team as well as the neighbor to address these issues and resolve these ownership issues that we are coming into with the adjoining property owner. And finally, 4809 Old Warwick. This property has an existing tenant, UPAL, which is a organization that deals with lead poisoning in children. We're trying to resolve an issue with the existing tenant, and we'll get back to you about updates with that as soon as we do. That's a lot of information. Any questions? I'm happy to go back to any of these.
So Eric, it sounds like, as you've shown us and as we received from you in our packet, that the majority, all except two, staff is recommending that those go through that application process to have single family homes developed on most of those. I think on one or two instances, I heard something about perhaps townhouses or, more units. Is that basically what most of the recommendations are?
That's correct. I believe most of these properties will be single family detached homes. Those larger parcels located on Forest Hill and Sams, I think, the city would like to see those have more density. I think those are appropriate for more density as well. And I think that will definitely increase, the overall impact of those properties.
Okay. So are there any public comments from those of you possibly from those communities related to that recommendation for those properties? Okay. What about CAP members?
Can you ask the question again?
Having trouble hearing.
Phrase it or ask it again. I didn't hear the question. Can you rephrase it or re-question?
Yes. Is that Dream? Is it coming from you, Dream?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just asking, these are, again, this is one of the major roles that we have. We look at these abandoned or delinquent properties, and they are being placed in the land bank. So our first charge is to make a recommendation as far as how they're to be used. And most of these properties, the recommendation from staff is to that their use be for single family homes. Nothing is there now. So the recommendation is that they be used for single family homes. 1 or 2 properties, as Eric said, might be more units that are put there. So we're just asking those from the community that might be familiar with those lots if there are any comments or questions that they have before we have our discussion among the members of the panel. So it's still a long question, but does it make more sense to you now? We just want to know what the community feels about any of those properties that they might be familiar with.
Meaning like the places on Ladies Mile in Hazelhurst. If you say single detached, then my comment would be a townhome, like that kind of input.
These properties will go into a pool, and different organizations or companies can apply to receive these properties, to purchase these properties, and to build on it. So we're not asking the community to say whether you want to see a townhouse or just a single family home. We just want to know if you've got any questions about that use. If you're seeing something other than a home going up there, anybody that's familiar with those properties, that's what we're asking.
Gotcha. Like a community pool instead of a house.
Yeah, right,
Or,
right. Yeah, we're just trying to see what the community feels about the recommendation besides it being a single family home. Mm-hmm.
Well, as far as, yeah, I'm gonna have to think about it because I got a whole list of stuff, but in those areas, I'm not sure.
Okay, that's valid. And remember, Eric is always a resource to follow back up with. And you can probably, hey, Flora, when you go online questioning any of those properties, isn't there a feedback form that's there?
We have a feedback form, I believe, on the CAP meeting page. That's richmondlandbank.com/next-meeting. richmondlandbank.com/next meeting with a dash in the middle. There's a feedback form there.
So I can just click. Can you put that in so I can click on it?
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, and so you can find more information about those properties there. We are asking the CAP to make a decision on these recommendations tonight, though. And I will say we probably shouldn't start accepting applications right away until we get the CLT requirement figured out. But we are, I think we would like the CAP to decide on these, to give us the go ahead on these tonight.
Right. And so at this point, I would like to just ask CAP members if there are any questions or comments or observations that you want to share at this point related to those recommended uses. Sheba.
Sheba, did you have something to say, or Lynn, should we go to you?
Did I mute myself? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
no, you're fine.
Sorry, y'all. I am perfectly fine with the affordable housing piece. I am curious about the property where the 2 owners have built things and like how that impacts them and how it impacts a new tenant, especially with the driveway piece. The fence, I'm not I'm pretty sure it can be resolved as far as like what's going on there. But 100% for the affordable housing piece, for especially in these neighborhoods where a lot of people have been pushed out or are being pushed out. But and also would be interested in the input from the current partners about the impact on affordability and building. But yes to all, and just having some curious questions about what happens with the properties where the adjacent neighbors have kind of built things on.
Guess I'll clarify that the existing ordinance that led to the transfer of these properties to the Richmond Land Bank requires that these properties be developed as affordable housing. So there isn't so much a decision that needs to be made about whether these properties will be used as affordable housing. I think the major decision to be made will mainly come at the receival of these applications for these properties. I think, we appreciate any comments as far as we structure this application process, for you to think about, okay, maybe for SEMS, just keep in back of your mind, the possibility there is for 8 to 10 units, so I'm letting you know that now, so that when you see the applications and a potential applicant comes in with 4 units, that you may take this recommendation into consideration. The fact that we did this, some due diligence with the city to determine that, the potential maximum output could have been 8 to 10 townhomes. Hopefully that makes sense.
Well, just to clarify, Eric, so what is the recommendation that you want us to make?
I do not believe there's any particular recommendation needed for these properties. I would like to just leave this open for comments or concerns. Sheba, in regards to the fences and the driveway, I'm not so quite sure right now. The fence, we are working with our legal team as well as the owner to resolve that issue ahead of time, so that the applicant should not have to deal with that. But other than that, that's it.
And
I think
I'll
Eric has.
I'll just add that when, neighbors have a vacant property near them for a long time, they sometimes, either through lack of information about where their property boundaries are, or because it's been vacant for so long, they make these sort of changes, something like a fence, something like a driveway, and that legally that's not something they're allowed to do. And so the only recourse that we have to turn those 2 properties in particular into housing is to notify those owners that they're in violation of the property rights of the property owner, which in this case is us, and to ask them to either remove or allow us to remove those things. So that's really what we're talking about with those 2 properties, is working with those neighbors to have those elements that they have removed.
Or in the case where there's a driveway, I don't know that it makes sense to make the adjoining property owner remove that driveway. But maybe there's another way around that. Because, that vacant property will probably benefit from having a driveway there, just somebody else put it in. I don't know the condition of it, but that would probably benefit them as well. I would think that that property owner would have to provide access to the adjoining property owner to continue to use it.
Yeah, that site is very small. And
Mhm.
so that would be one great outcome would be if we could just get shared legal agreement to share
Right.
the driveway. But we don't know at this point if building a house there would allow the driveway to remain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and like Eric said, all these questions will all be addressed by the actual applicants who will, you know, look at these parcels and say, okay, what are the issues here? How can I solve them? And those solutions can be part of their proposals. Yeah, so again, we're not really, there's no real decision to be made here about what to do with these properties. That's been decided by the city for us already. We are simply asking you to, you know, consider these things and say, you know, okay, you're good to go, or wait, we have questions.
And this is different than all the past properties that have come in front of the CAP. Previously, the land bank has received properties through the city's tax foreclosure process. And in those situations, we had a two-part process. The first part being, what does the CAP recommend as a use? And it's that step that we're eliminating here because these properties were from the city's surplus, and the city owned them and transferred them to us. And when they transferred them to us, they included a provision in there that said, we are transferring all of these to you for affordable housing development. So not only do they have to be housing, they have to be affordable. So what we did differently than other times before is when we took title to these properties, we hired an engineer and a surveyor and did a lot of analysis of the properties because we knew what was really going to be the decision-making process for the CAP was going to be what type of housing, how much housing, how does it get dealt with on these funky lots where there's a creek, there's a driveway, yada, yada. And so this is really for your information so that the next time when a developer comes and says, I want to build this crazy thing here or this great idea here, you're going to have all of this knowledge from engineers and zoning and surveyors to fall back on to evaluate those.
Great. Flora and Erica, thank you for that clarification. So the use is for affordable family housing. So that's pretty much a done deal. And I think what that speaks to, again, if they're going to go through that property purchase application, that's why, again, I think, Flora, you said it's really critical that we come to a decision, a recommendation related to that requirement that was presented earlier so that we can see who's interested in even going through that application process.
Right.
Just one question related to that before we leave that, because those are basically all of the items on the agenda. In the past, I thought that, I know, Mary Kay, you mentioned that you have first right of refusal if a homeowner decides to sell and not make it affordable. You have first right of refusal.
We have first right of refusal. Maggie Walker Land Trust has second. And so that's how we protect the affordability going forward. And if I may, I would just like to explain the Habitat partner families that we work with. Last year, the AMI was 43% for our homeowners. And we, of course, how we do that with volunteers and fundraising, and we hold the mortgages. We're the bank, 0% interest mortgage, structure them so they're 25% of your monthly income. So that's the Habitat program. We've served 370 some families through that program. And in surveying our families, we know that they're older, so they're later coming into homeownership opportunity. So they're behind on building equity that many of us have had the opportunity as younger people to start building generational wealth. Our families are typically older and waiting longer, having to wait longer to find the opportunity for homeownership. So we want them to build as much equity as we can rather than do a shared equity kind of model. And we've internally talked about this a lot. And I think at some point we will be able to incorporate that into our education program for our partner families and serve more that way by making the availability of the land trust an opportunity to serve more families. But for this particular group of 15 properties, and these are pretty good properties, and Habitat, like all nonprofit, Project Home, Southside, we're starved for properties. And we've been so grateful for the CLT and the land bank providing that opportunity to acquire properties. That's the biggest challenge for us working in the city. So I just want to go on record saying that I'm disappointed that this may become a requirement. It's going to make us rethink how we're going to be able to do our work.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary Kay, for sharing that. Was there another comment? Because I did want to make one, but I didn't want to speak over someone.
I have a question for the
Sheba. Mm-hmm.
land bank. Like, is this a change going forward, or is this just for this group of city-owned property? Like, are we changing the structure of how the properties come about, what's built on them, what people decide they want to do, or is this just specifically for these because they're coming from the city?
So this is a change going forward for all properties after this, but it's not specifically, it's not every property.
But Sheba, are you asking about the community land trust requirement, or are you talking about the way we didn't get to decide whether these would be housing or commercial or other uses on the properties?
But kind of both.
Because there's a different answer. So it's very possible we would get other properties in the future where we can go through that process we have in the past of deciding what the use would be. These particular properties came with a requirement for affordable housing, but that doesn't mean that in the future we wouldn't get properties where we could make that decision about the use. But as Flora said, what we're proposing with regards to this CLT requirement would be, we're proposing that not just for this one round of applications, but for all future affordable homeownership applications.
Yeah, and specifically affordable homeownership. The CLT requirement would not apply to rentals or to commercial space or green space or anything like that.
So I do have one question related to that requirement, and I don't mean to prolong it, but since we're all here, what would be the difference between having this requirement versus having, I'm going to pull from what Mary Kay was saying, having the CLT with the first right of refusal when the property...
it's very different. So when a property that a habitat owner owns, they're able to sell it for market rate, and the right of first refusal allows Habitat or the community land trust to buy it from them, but it would have to be bought at that full market value. And so then whoever purchased it and wanted to make it affordable again would have to put in a large amount of subsidy to resubsidize it. And so that's what we're trying to avoid.
Thanks for clarifying that, Erica. And so again, I think where we are with that is Flora had indicated that there would be more conversation with our partner organizations about their weighing in on this. And then that information would be communicated back to the CAP probably via email, or even if there's a special call meeting, whatever you think is going to be most efficient, before any applications are put out. We need to make sure that we have clarity as far as this particular requirement. Okay. James.
Well, actually, I think Ms. Hampton had her hand up first, but.
Thank you. I didn't know when the appropriate time. Thank you. I didn't know when the appropriate time was to make an announcement, but there was a question about the renovating of properties. So if you would let me know when the appropriate time is to make that announcement to everybody, just to provide some information. I just wanted to do that, Ms. Creighton.
So are you saying, because unless there's something else, staff, we've pretty much covered our agenda. Is that correct?
That's
and
correct.
We have our next step identified, which is related to that requirement of those properties placed into the land trust. James?
I did want to have a little bit of clarity on going forward. It seems as if the Magwell Community Land Trust wants to have, they're trying to preserve affordability into the future for perpetuity, as opposed to preserve affordability for one house sale. And that may be the biggest difference between what the Community Land Trust and what Habitat Humanity, the goals.
Thank you for making that comment. Yes. And if there are no other comments related to that, Ms. Hampton, is there something you wanted to share with us then?
Yes, Ms. Creighton, and thank you all. Let me say good evening. Cheryl Hampton, Director for Housing and Community Development with the City of Richmond. Ms. Ebert is my boss, but I wanted to share information on 3 programs that I think would be good for our homeowners. And I'm sharing this because I noticed a question in the chat about, does the city provide funding to renovate properties? I'm happy to see Miss Mary Kay Huss with Habitat, which is one of our partners. The city funds right now 3 nonprofits to do work renovating homeowners' homes. And that is Project Homes, that is Habitat, and that's also rebuilding within the Richmond. So rebuilding Richmond, Habitat, and Project Homes. So you can call any of those organizations if you are a homeowner seeking to have your house renovated. The second program I wanted to share, the city is also doing a lead line replacement, and we have a new Healthy Homes program where we would come in and replumb homes that have galvanized or lead lines. The city, through DPU, is replacing the lines from the street to the house. And then under the program that my department oversees, we'll be coming in and doing those. And it is a Healthy Homes program. So if there are repairs to the bathroom, leaky faucets, lead, or if someone has children under a certain age where the lead may be in the building, mold, or having to pull out carpets and making sure that the indoor air quality is appropriate to mitigate diseases like asthma and COPD, then they can contact our department. The Department of Utilities is doing the lead line, so you do have to do 2 different applications. One is for the lead lines, and there's no cost to the homeowner. So you can call Miss Rosemary Green in the Department of Public Utilities. Her number is 804-646-4378. 804-646-4378. If you would like more information on our Healthy Homes program, which would be implemented in September, you can call myself or Mr. Don Gravetti right here in the HCD, Housing and Community Development Department at 646-1766. And I wanted to share that because those programs will provide, excuse me, assistance to homeowners who's seeking to have their homes renovated.
Thank you. That's tremendous information. And Sheba, thank you for putting the names and the numbers in the chat. So if you didn't get it, Ms. Hampton, your office with the 804-646-1766, that's related to the Healthy Homes Housing Rehab Program. Is that correct, Ms. Hampton? Yes. And then yes. Rosemary Green, the 646-4378 number is related to the lead pipes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The lead lines coming from the street to the house. There is an application process, and you would call her. You may need to leave a message, but Rosemary or someone on that team will get back with you. They have begun to take applications. Both of these are new programs that will begin in September. So you can get more information. There is one additional program that I'd also like to tell everyone about. It is the partial tax exemption for homeowners who are either renting to low and moderate income individuals or own themselves. They are homeowners. They may have done renovations to their homes, and or they want to renovate their homes. You cannot start the work before you make the application, but you may be eligible for a partial tax exemption based on the increase in the taxes based on the renovations that would be conducted. So just remember, you can't have done the renovation before you made the application. You have to make the application first, and my staff here would let you know whether you're eligible. But that's a partial tax exemption program. We really want people to use it, and I'm trying to get the word out. So if you will share that with our property owners, whether they're rental or whether they are homeowners who have undertaken renovations to their home that increase the value by 20%. For rental, renovations would have to increase the value by 40%. But you may be eligible for a partial tax exemption, property tax exemption. So I just wanted to share those things with you.
Great, wonderful. Thank you for being present and sharing that information. And again, Sheba, thank you. I can't chat and talk at the same time, so I appreciate your, capturing all of that and sending it out in the chat. So do make sure you copy and paste before we close out so that you have that information. Any other announcements, any other comments before we officially adjourn for the evening?
I just wanted to make sure that we have our next steps all straightened out. So next steps for staff are we're going to be reaching out to our partners at Project Homes, Southside, Habitat, et cetera, talking to them about the CLT requirement and bringing that all information back to the CAP via email, possibly via a special closed meeting if that's necessary. And then after we get your decision on that policy, then we're going to go ahead and start collecting applications for these 15 surplus properties.
Yes.
Is that correct? Awesome.
You're right on target. And I see another hand going up before we leave our meeting. Is that Marie Cousins?
Yes, it is.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. I have a question, and it pertains to the historic Jackson Ward area. And I
Uh-huh.
know at the last meeting that you had in February, of course, you talked about the 10 parcels that were made. I'm just trying to find out how many additional properties, parcels do you have in the historic Jackson Ward area?
So there are 5 parcels surrounding the 10 that we gave to the Jackson project that we still own. I believe one is on North 3rd Street. There are a couple on East Preston Street across from the Jackson project parcels that we own. Yeah, and I can, if you want to send me an email, I can give you more information about those.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, my email is in the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cousins. Any other comments or closing remarks? We're within our time frame. We usually end by 7. I think I may have lost our incoming chair. Don't see her on. There she is. Sharon, I didn't see you for a minute. You're gone away. So Sharon, it is my pleasure to pass the gavel to you, for the next meeting. And Flora, that is scheduled for, is that November?
Let me double check really quickly. Yeah, November 2nd, Wednesday, November 2nd at 5:30 is our next schedule.
Wednesday, November 2nd. Gosh, that's right after election. Okay.
Yeah, we will try to have the process kind of wrapped up for all of those 15 properties, have the CLT requirement discussion finished and decided, and those properties we will try to get applications ready for that meeting. We may need more time, so there may be a reschedule, but we will see.
Okay, wonderful. Well, listen, again, thank you all for attending today, especially those citizens in the community. Welcome again to James. I know Lynn had to get off, as well as some staff member. It's again been a pleasure and an honor to serve alongside all of you. You will see me as a participant in future meetings. So listen, continue to stay safe, be well.